I'm Jake DiBattista from Lumos Learning. Today we have a special guest, Steve Floyd. Welcome. He's the CEO of August House Publishing. Over the last 35 years, August House has published a highly acclaimed award-winning selection of picture books, story collections, and resource books based on the world's finest folk tales. Congratulations. I'm looking forward to learning more about you and August House today. But before we jump to that, I'd like to learn a little bit more about you. Could you please tell us more about yourself and why you decided to become a publisher of stories for kids?
Sure. I'd had a career outside of publishing and really came to publishing and children's books in about 2004. I've been involved in internet, interactive media, whole range of things. So we look at stories and we look at publishing much different than most people who grew up in print-based publishing. We see stories that should be shared any way, any medium that the audience wants. So that's really a little different perspective there.
Interesting, very interesting. So why are you guys so excited about folk tales, and what are the benefits to kids and educators of you kind of focusing on that subgenre?
Well, good question. Folktales seem like a natural to us for a number of reasons. One, they were multicultural. That was a key point for us. Two, there are character traits that are highlighted and demonstrated in every folktale. Folktales were originally used not just for entertainment and not for children's stories, but to pass on the village, the tribe, or the country's core values. So whether it was things like sharing or things like courage, or whatever the attribute may be, they were shared in stories. A lot of times the shaman, a lot of times one of the elders, but the stories were a common occurrence, and they weren't just for kids. So these were oral tradition, were passed down over generation. Most of the stories we publish are hundreds, if not thousands of years old. And we know they're good stories because they survive the test of time. And that makes them very exciting to us. So the multicultural aspect, the international global aspect, and the fact that these stories were first developed, if you will, for the ear and not to be read. So it makes it easier in some ways for young kids, especially emerging readers, to deal with picture books or story collections that are from the oral tradition.
It's fantastic. Yeah. So that kind of ties really well to our next question, which is, where did this passion about helping kids become fluent readers stem from, and how important are these reading skills for children's overall development?
That's another good question. I have a master's degree that I earned decades ago from Indiana University in education with an emphasis on instructional design and educational systems. So I've had a long history of reading, and my mother, in fact, one of the things she said, she gave me anything, it was a love of reading. That was going to the library every weekend, doing things like that. So reading and stories have always been important. As you look at the research, that's the personal point of view, but as you look at the research, whether it's the National Reading Panel or any other research that's been developed by Literacy Association, et cetera, um, core reading skills and those fundamental reading skills are so critical for a child's self-esteem, for a child's ability to succeed, and later on to finish school and actually enter into society and be a productive, prosperous, contributing member of society. So reading is at the core of everything we do in the modern world.
Wow. So I see several titles are now available in the Lumos Reading Buddy program. What motivated you to bring these folk tales onto our online medium?
We were really interested in the technology, the way that you had translated the technology into something that was easy to use, um, that really focused on the issues of fluency specifically, that being one of the core reading skills that the National Reading Panel calls out. And fluency, as you know, is a very labor intensive skill to help with kids. So the fact that Lumos had been experimenting and developing and working with educators to do this, we just felt like the ease of use and the fact that you could automate this process in a positive way to be child centric and to be available for kids to use, along with educators and along with families, to develop those core fluency skills when they're so difficult to do one-on-one.
Mm, makes sense. What role does vocabulary practice play in improving reading fluency?
Well, as you know, one of the attributes of fluency is being able to read accurately on it in a timed manner with expression. If a child has good vocabulary, then they're going to be more confident and they're going to be a little more braver, let's say, in their expression. and in their reading speeds. If they're not confident in their vocabulary, then they're going to go slower. They're going to be thinking about the words. They won't be automatically coming to mind. So that's going to impact their fluency when they're assessed for their fluency levels. So vocabulary is very critical for that.
Makes sense. So I see that children can access the read along in the online program. How does that read along help children become better readers?
In a lot of the literature, people recommend guided reading and read-alongs and team reading as part of fluency skill building. So a lot of times a child is reading a passage 3 times, potentially only once independently. So having that narration in there to demonstrate and to coach kids without correcting them, so they can see it modeled for them in a way that the words are pronounced accurately, another attribute that is assessed in fluency, and they see the pacing or hear the pacing, so that becomes a really good model for them. Just like if you're learning a physical sport, whether it's kicking a ball or throwing a ball, having someone model that and work with you in practice, and again, practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes permanent. So if you're practicing something that's been well modeled and you're getting, let's say, relatively consistent, accurate, specific feedback, it makes it much easier to have those things that are permanent more accurate. So you're not unlearning bad habits and unlearning poor skills, but you're accelerating that speed without causing extra stress for the child. So I think it's a very efficient way to go, and it certainly just makes common sense as well as support from the reading literature.
Yeah, good to hear. As a publisher and as CEO of a publishing house, how does listing your title on the Lumos Reading Buddy platform help you?
There are thousands of picture books and thousands of really wonderful children's books out there today. Discovery is number 1, 2, and 3 for every publisher of their titles. That's why for what we do, for example, program books that we publish have to be award winners. They have to be well reviewed. They have to have professional acceptance, because again, the vast majority, 80% of any books that we sell go to schools and go to libraries. So they have to be authentic. They have to be rich and engaging. So having that discoverability on the platform with Lumos is ideal for us, because some people think that digital media or digital books actually cannibalize print books. We find just the opposite. It actually expands exposure, expands engagement. So again, whether people are engaging auditorily, digitally, online, or in print, or in whatever way, we think that's an important way for kids to experience the story. Therefore, it becomes more engaging, and they're more likely to remember it and hopefully apply it and use it. So the Lumos platform is just one more way to have our books get exposure to kids and get exposure to educators who can then enjoy them and use them.
Great. One final question here. Are you and your team working on any new children's stories right now?
Actually, I'm glad you asked. In April, we will be releasing Kindness Tales by Margaret Reed McDonald. Margaret is a retired librarian, PhD in folklore, travels the world. She's written over 55 books. We think Kindness Tales is the ideal book coming out in this time when things are really confusing for all of us, adults and kids. We can all use a little bit more kindness. So that book will be launched this spring of 2021. And we are very excited about it. It's got, I think, approximately 40 stories that are kindness and how acts of kindness lead to literally a better world.
Wow.
So that's our most immediate project right now that we're excited about.
What a beautiful story that's going to be. Well, that was very informative, and I'm sure we're all very excited about Kindness Tales coming out. So I really appreciate you making the time for us today, and wish you the best of luck moving forward.
Thanks, Jake. We look forward to our partnership. Good luck to you.
And